The principle that no prophet is acceptable in his hometown is found in all four Gospels. It may have been that they are all accounts of the same incident, but the account of Mark's Gospel gives a few more details about one of the incidents. He went out from there. He came into his own country, and his disciples followed him. When the Sabbath had come, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many hearing him were astonished, saying, "Where did this man get these things? And, what is the wisdom that is given to this man, that such mighty works come about by his hands? Isn't this the carpenter, the son of Mary, and brother of James, Joses, Judah, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us?" They were offended at him. Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor, except in his own country, and among his own relatives, and in his own house." He could do no mighty work there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people, and healed them. He marveled because of their unbelief. He went around the villages teaching, Mark 6:1-6. Matthew 13:56 also pictures the townspeople of Jesus, dumbfounded by what they heard from their local boy. The son of Mary and Joseph, the carpenter, was now preaching to them, as if he was a God-sent prophet, teaching them how to live their lives. Matthew does not state what exactly Jesus said that offended them so deeply, but if this account is the same as what Luke 4:14-21 records, then they were offended at many things Jesus said, from proclaiming himself the Messiah, to saying Gentiles were cared for by God. All Matthew records is that Jesus spoke wisdom beyond his education and years, and that he did something amazing. But instead of being awed, they took offense at him. Upon being scorned and rejected by the people of his hometown, Jesus quoted a well-known proverb of the day to them, "A prophet is not without honor, except in his hometown and in his own household." In other words, prophets who spoke God's word were generally accepted by folks who did not know them. But when a hometown boy comes back to his roots, the people take offense when he teaches, especially if he lacks the accepted credentials rabbis had. This holds true for any man who is known as a child, but who later grows up and becomes a Christian preacher. The proverb was, and is, true, but it became simply another barrier for the people to not believe. Jesus' fame had grown throughout Israel over the previous year or so, yet he would not be famous in his hometown, he would be infamous. It appears that no matter what Jesus did or said in Nazareth, he was going to be rejected there. The soil of the hearts of those townspeople was hardened, and their hearts were ruled by the god of this world, namely Satan. The excuse they used for not believing Jesus was his family, who were obviously well known among the people of Nazareth. He was the carpenter's son, Mary's child, the brother of at least 6 siblings. Thus, Jesus was nothing more than the people of a small village of Nazareth. A nobody. And their familiarity with him caused them to take offense at his words and powers. Familiarity tends to do that, it breeds contempt. But mainly the people were offended because their hearts were hardened. It is not that Jesus' words were not believable, or that his miraculous works were not so impressive, rather, they just refused to believe. Like his own family, the Nazarenes probably thought he was insane, or even possessed. Their contempt was such, that they even tried to throw him off a cliff. This is how a community can treat a person who rises up for God. Jesus' point is God doesn't just pour out blessings on people who challenge him with, "Show me your great mighty power." He rewards faithfulness and believing. So Jesus knew all this. He taught an important principle that this is what happens to God's anointed in the towns where they grow up. People can't see past the human frailties of somebody who's lived among them for so long. But can we blame them? Would you believe a member of your family or your neighbor, who, all of a sudden, started claiming to be the Son of God? Anyway, as a result of Nazareth's unbelief, Matthew says that Jesus did not do many miracles there. Jesus' powers were not limited, but his willingness was, for Jesus did not throw pearls before swine, Matthew 7-6. It would have been a waste of time for him to do great wonders, for the people were unmoved and unmovable in their resolve. Having sowed the seeds of salvation in Nazareth, it is evident that they fell beside the road, and the birds came and ate them up, Matthew 13-4, that the devil snatched the truth away from them, so that they would not believe, Matthew 13:19. There is a lesson here. If a person gets called to do something for God, they may have to leave, and do it somewhere else, where nobody can tarnish or discredit his reputation and his ministry. The people who have seen you growing up, have seen you at your worst and your weakest, are probably going to have a hard time believing that you are called into service as God's person. While you are speaking about some incredible and wonderful aspects of God, it may be that all they can see are those times that you fell on your face as a child. Jesus says that a prophet is not only without honor in his own country. A man of God may be well respected in the nation or somewhere else, but to the community where he grew up, and even to his immediate family, well, that's another story we are all aware of. Jesus could not do mighty works because of this reaction, although he did lay his hands on a few people, and healed them. Unbelief was the limiting factor. It wasn't Jesus' unbelief that limited him, it was the community's unbelief that limited them from receiving what Jesus could do for them. A prophet is a person who speaks for God what God directs them to speak on his behalf. He is a spokesman and a messenger. But very often, if not always, the prophet or teacher would not be accepted by those who knew him, when he was one of them. People are generally jealous or resentful of someone they knew, now appearing to have some special talent or ability. Jesus set the example for how to respond to the situation where your community, or even your family, may not be able to receive what you have been called to do for God. He just walked away, and did his mighty work away from where he grew up, where it was appreciated, or at least not rejected. We shouldn't be surprised if we have to do the same. Follow God's call, but do not cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet, and turn, and tear you in pieces. Matthew 7:6.